I dreamed I made an internet video in my Maidenform Bra. Ugh. Alright, so I will be talking about the Maidenform Bra campaign of the 1950s, which goes into the 1960s. But the reason that I am going to be talking about it later on is because this video is about 1950s undergarments. That's why I'm just sitting here in a very pointy bra that no modern woman would want to wear. I mean, that's not true. Maybe you're into the bullet bra. I don't know. You do you. But I did want to research this topic because, as I've said in my previous video, I am interested in making vintage lingerie. However, the lingerie that I tend to make is the silky, sleek form and looser form of the 1920s and the 1930s, where it was a lot of French knickers and bralette or camisole sort of undergarments. And then, all of a sudden, here comes the 1950s. Corsetry is back in. We've got all of the girdles and the pinafores and like the what is that stuff? That underwire stuff. All the stuff that actually we see a lot in lingerie today. So while this look might not exactly be what we see, it was the beginning of what we know as the standard undergarments that we use today. So it was very interesting to just look into that and where it came from. And I also think if you are going to be doing historical costuming or historical cosplay, one of the best ways for authenticity is to make sure that you have the right silhouette. How do you get the right silhouette? You get the right undergarments. That's why there's different corsets for different eras that will give you the different shapes that you see in those sort of like in the paintings that you see, that classic look for that era. So let's start off with the beginning of the shape that hourglass shape that a lot of women were aspiring to in the 1950s because advertisers told them to. This starts in 1947, and the infamous, very talented Christian Dior comes out with a collection of clothes that just takes the fashion world by storm. It's called the New Look. And while before there were a lot of straighter silhouettes in the 1920s and the 1930s, and then in the 1940s there was a lot of rationing and utilitarian use of clothing, so it wasn't all about just exuberant fashion. It was about, being in a country during a war and having to work and make sure that troops, people weren't thinking about their fashion as much. The new look that Christian Dior was going for, it was about accentuating the stereotypically feminine features of the human body. So it sloped down the shoulders, it accentuated the breasts, it nipped in the waist, and it flared out the hips. Boom. And it got a lot of popularity in part because of that reaction to the rationing and also the reaction to women going back to the workplace during World War II. You can't really, work a machine while you're wearing this voluminous dress that's getting all up in everyone's business. You want to know how intensely voluminous these dresses were? You can look at the piece called Cherie, which is one of the dresses of the Dior collection, and it used 13 and a half yards of fabric. I don't know about other sewers, but 13 and a half yards of fabric, for me that always just translates into money. I'm like, that's a lot of money worth of fabric. Look, but they were just like, you know what? Pleats upon pleats and pleats. Not only was it in direct, I was going to say retaliating against the 1920s and 30s. It's in direct reaction to the 1920s and 30s, This look, this new look that had these really exaggerated hourglass shapes, were also harkening back to the styles of the 19th century. We're talking like 1860s to 1890s, the really waspy sort of corsetry, the use of a lot of fabric all over. It was about decadence. And it was also about making this statement in terms of what is feminine and what is masculine. We're going to go back to when women were women and men were men, and women passed out when they're trying to walk down the stairs because of their corsetry. Yes, it wasn't as extreme as the 19th century, but it was what they were going after. A really good example of this sort of look that was borrowed from the 19th century, you can see in this gown worn by Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge was the first African American actress to be nominated for an Academy Award. She also is wearing a dress that has this very stereotypically corseted shape, and in the back you can see there's almost like this bustle look to it. Obviously it's not the same, it's a different era, but you can see where designers were borrowing from these older times. So here's the issue with the new look. Not many women can fit into that shape. So that's why Undergarments picked up the slack. So we're talking about corsetry turned into girdles and bras. And all of a sudden, they started using materials that they had never used before, like underwire and padding and all that extra stuff that seemed extraneous in earlier time periods. So here's the lineup for a 1950s classic undergarment setup. So we've got the structured bra, we've got the girdle, we've got the stockings that attach to the garters on the girdle, and then we have a pinafore to make those dresses go out and fluff up. Here's just a little aside though that I kind of raised an eyebrow about. I was looking for just some reference photos on the internet while I was researching this, and I found a question answer thing on Quora. Is that how you say it? Somebody was like just asking a question like, who was considered attractive to 1950s standards during that era? And so this person, like gave out some names. Like I think they said Elizabeth Taylor. That's the only one I can remember right now. I couldn't believe at the end of this whole thing, they said, what was it? Okay, I gotta look it up. The old Hollywood era had many stunning, beautiful, and most importantly, natural, in caps, natural beauties that you don't often find nowadays. Alright, here's the deal. You see what's going on right here? There's nothing natural about this. There's nothing natural about a lot of these starlets of the 1950s. Not that it's bad, but there's a lot of styling of the hair. There's a lot of makeup. And their bodies were, of a certain standard. That's what they were looking for at the time. Sure, maybe they had more curves, but they were curves in like a certain way that producers and directors wanted. There's nothing natural about that. There's nothing natural about this. So here's the deal. Cup fittings weren't even invented until the 1930s. 1935 was when the ABCD cup came into existence. They finally found out that, you need a couple of measurements to fit a bra. It took a while. And then in the 1930s, it wasn't until later that they had underwire components and strapless bras and all those kind of bras that you see that turn up in the 1950s. But because of World War II, things didn't really pick up in terms of fashion until afterwards. So by the time it was the 1950s, that's when women started buying underwire bras and more structured bras. Now, here's a fun fact again. I have so many fun facts. 1950s bras were made with either cotton, nylon, or rayon, and they cost about $1 to $2.50. which, man, so many bras. If it was only that much, that is a cheap bra. Now they're like $1 bazillion. Thanks. Market, inflation. Also, elastic wasn't very durable back then, so you know the way, like, I don't know about you guys, but I beat my bras to hell and they just keep on going. Wasn't that way back then. They had to actually like delicately clean them and all that fun stuff. Now that we're talking about bras, let's bring up the bullet bra because it is the most questionable part of 1950s fashion. I mean, maybe there's more questionable parts. I don't know, but it didn't. I'm not into it, even though I'm wearing one. Or maybe I am into it. The bullet bra is also known as the sweater girl bra because it's supposed to fill out your sweater. Real nice. And it really did have that accentuated bust line that was really the standard of the time. In fact, it was a standard, but it was so unrealistic that a lot of women had to stuff their bras. It was very common for women to stuff their bras. There was the rubber inserts that you could have gotten. They came with nipples or no nipples, and one of the downsides to them was that they were made of poor rubber, so they would either disintegrate or soak up odors. That seems really embarrassing. If you're just like sitting around, you're on a date with somebody, you're like, what's that smell? Gee, I'm sorry, it's my tits. Like, no. There is the other side where there was foam cones that you could stuff into your bra, but that had the downside that if you got bumped into, your bust would flatten and you couldn't fix it until you went into the bathroom. Let me demonstrate. My bust is all weird now. That was kind of the downfall of these bras that didn't really fit a lot of women's bust lines. I'm just gonna fix this. There we go. The Maidenform Bra, which was a very popular bra brand at the time, also came out with inflatable bras. They came with mouthpieces and they were called très secrets. They're very secret. No one knows. I mean, unless they pop or deflate, which did occasionally happen. Yikes. Speaking of Maidenform, because they were so popular, they also came out with, I'm going to say, one of the greatest ad campaigns of all time. The Maidenform ad campaign was made by 3 women copywriters in 1949, and it just took off. The tagline was, "I dreamed I was blank in a Maidenform bra." And it at one point got so wacky, there was just like all kinds of things you could be in your Maidenform bra. I was a alien bear cub. An alien bear cub in my Maidenform bra. The point of the ad campaign was an empowering message that came off as a little insincere, especially when some of the things that the models were dreaming of in their Maidenform bra were things that were inaccessible to them, like good education, working. All right, here, I'll show you. I'll show you what it is. I'm gonna turn this on. It's gonna be so much editing. We're gonna start off. I dreamed I went to work in my Maidenform bra. I mean, that's just like a normal day, but I guess if like you are trapped in a house with children and you had a job in the 40s but that got taken away, you might be dreaming about going back to your work, and I guess in a Maidenform bra. Although, I'm pretty sure if I showed up to work like this, I'd get a talking to. I don't know. They might not understand. Here's one to make everyone feel great. I dreamed I won the election in my Maidenform bra. You dumb bitch. Women can't be president? Who does she think she is? This one like kept me up at night. I was very confused by this one. I dreamed I was lost in a London fog in my Maidenform bra. I, I have so many questions. Like, did you want to get lost in the fog? Do you want to cover up? Because it seems kind of cold. Are you trying to like do some kind of Sherlock Holmes like detective stuff? Like, what's happening here? I want to know. I want to know. I mean, you look fabulous. You look fabulous, but you also look exposed more so than all the other ones for some reason. Yeah, I'm reading. I don't understand. Here's one for me. I dreamed I was an artist in my Maidenform bra. That's what I'm doing right now. This is art, I swear. See, this is a good one. This is good. It looks a little 60s though, so maybe I went a little too far in the future. I dreamed I swayed the jury in my Maidenform bra. It's good to know that the American justice system is based off of, like, facts and evidence and not somebody in a bra. Swayed the jury in what way? Is she the one did she murder somebody? Was she just a witness to a murder? There has to be murder involved with this. I don't know. I don't like it. And now I'm just going to add an extra ad, which, I mean, it's not Maidenform. Thank God. I love Maidenform too much. But, it is this. This is how I trap my man. With my tits and ass. He's trapped now. He hates his life. He hates my personality, but my tits and ass are great. Yikes. The end of the Maidenform campaign coincided with the women's liberation movement. In 1969, the Maidenform ad campaign was no more. I hope this was informative and helpful. I know it's ridiculous. I'm cosplaying in my undies, but I love lingerie. It's fun. It's like I'm wearing a bikini. What other things do people want to hear about? About the arts, about fashion, about sewing. I probably do a little bit more about fashion because I'm really interested in it. I love how fashion reflects the time period. But let me know. Let me know. Let me know. Bye. Bye. Bye.